Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Shannon Davenport, CEO of NCC, and your host for this inspiring NCC community learning event. Thank you for joining us. Today's session is one we're especially excited about, and it's very timely: Demystifying AI Essentials for Educators. And we're honored to be joined by someone who truly embodies the spirit of innovation in education, Lindy Hockenbary. Not to mention, she is a fan favorite. And those of you on this call probably already know Lindy and you know how wonderful she is. But let me just tell you a little bit about Lindy if you don't know her already. She began her journey in a tech equipped classroom where she discovered the power of blending instruction and technology, as many of us have. Since then, she's become a trusted voice in EdTech. She works with schools around the world to support transformative learning experiences. She's the author of A Teacher's Guide to Online Learning, a 2024 EdTech Leader, and she holds certifications from Google, Microsoft, and Minecraft, just to name a few. Whether she's consulting with edtech companies or leading hands-on training for educators, Lindy brings what we call the Lindy touch, a unique ability to make complex ideas clear, practical, and inspiring. Based in beautiful Bozeman, Montana, everybody wants to go to Montana right now, Lindy. Lindy continues to champion better learning for all. And today she's here to help us make sense and demystify AI in education. So let's dive in. Lindy, we're so excited to have you and thank you for taking time to come and present on this community event. So take it away.
All right. Thanks, Shannon. What a great intro. That was a perfect intro because today we're talking demystifying AI. So I'm going to try to take what is complicated. AI can get really complicated or it can get really simple. And that's really my goal for you today is to walk away from this going, oh, this isn't so bad. This isn't so complicated. Like, I can do this. I can handle this. So I'm going to give you this is gonna be interactive. I'm gonna be doing it on my screen if you're, driving or whatever, and sometimes people are watching webinars and don't want to have an interactive piece, but if you want to make it interactive, it's going to be, or else you can kind of watch what I'm doing on the screen, and you're going to be learning through these activities and kind of increasing your own AI literacy, but at the same time, giving you activities and strategies that you can turn around and use with your students in the fall when you're back in school to increase their personal AI literacy. So before we jump in, I've got an activity right off the bat, but I want to know where everybody's from. Let me know. Shannon said, I'm in Bozeman, Montana. It's a beautiful day here. Let's see, it was my watch day, 71 degrees. I couldn't get much nicer. Looking at the nice weather out my window here. Maria's in Florida. Maria, are you always based in Florida? You go there in the summer? Uh, Kara or Kara? I'm guessing it's Kara, or correct me if I'm wrong, is in Saskatchewan. I love it. We got some Canadian participants north of me, not too far north of me, really. I have colleagues in Alberta, and they're always surprised at how close we are to each other. I'm like, you're just directly north of me. Tennessee. Shannon's in Tennessee. Another Canada. Wow, Canada is representing. Oh, Maria, you're always in Florida. Okay. See, I didn't know that. I didn't know you were based in Florida. Good, good, good. Well, thank you all for joining. It is also a holiday. Juneteenth. I did not realize that. Shannon and I were talking, we did not realize that when we scheduled this, but happy Juneteenth. It's a federal holiday today. So, right, let's get started. Lindy, quit talking, let's get started. I'm going to start off right at the bat. We're going to do an activity called Google Quick Draw. If you've done this before, no worries. We're going to dive deeper. A lot of people have maybe done the quick draw activity, but we're going to take this a step deeper. But if you haven't done quick draw before, I want you to do it because you're going to learn a little bit and it's just a whole bunch of fun. So I'm going to flip over to my live view. I'm going to put the link in the chat if you do want to follow along and do it on your device. If not, I'm going to be showing it here for you. You're going to open up quickdraw.withgoogle.com, and then you're going to hit the Let's Draw button. I'll just do a couple to show you what it's like, and then I'll let you do it on your own. So it's going to give you something to draw. Draw a street light in under 20 seconds. It does talk to you, by the way. I think I have my sound shared, so you guys should be able to hear my sound. So I'm going to hit got it, and I'm going to draw a street light. As simple as that. It's going to give you your own things to draw. Oh, maybe I'm going to draw a street light. Come on. Let's refresh. Something stuck. Oh, now I'm going to draw a cooler. No? Oh my gosh, this has literally never not worked. Okay, you know what the first troubleshooting tip is when something in a browser won't work? You switch browsers. So we're going to go from my trusty Google Chrome to my second trusty Microsoft Edge. If you're having the same issue. Okay, frying pan. No, it's not a browser issue. Look. What? Oh, this is so sad that I can't get in there. Okay, well, I'm going to assume that this is a me problem, and let me know if you guys are able to get in there or not, and see if you guys can complete it, because of course, I've
I
never
don't think
had
it
an
is
issue.
you, Lindy.
No,
I
are
think
you having
that
an
they're
issue
on
too?
holiday today.
Man, Google is on a federal holiday. I've
So,
literally never not had this tool work, and I've done it a
so
million
funny.
times. Okay, that's okay. We can still, without doing the activity, we can still dive into the fun stuff on the background. Yeah, okay. Maria says I've done it before and I can't get in today. Darn. All right, so it's not me. It's not me. Well, what it will do, let's go back to the homepage, quickdraw.google.com. Basically, it gives you 6 drawings. Come back tomorrow, or maybe even this afternoon, it will have a better day, and it'll give you 6 drawings. You draw it in under 20 seconds. It'll start guessing what you're drawing. Actually, I have a screenshot for this particular purpose, tech issue purpose. Here we go. So this is kind of what it looks like. So this was draw, I think, a black cat, and this was draw a lightning bolt, right? It'll start guessing as you're drawing. It'll be like, as you're drawing this, it'll be like, dog, bear. Oh, I know, it's a cat. Or sometimes it won't guess what you're drawing. And this is just a really great way to teach yourself as well as students. Shannon already did a great intro of me, so I'm going to skip past that. Uh, that at the most basic level, both literally and figuratively, AI is a predicting machine. Okay? It is a machine. And that's something that people don't understand. And people are like, oh, I'm so sick of hearing about AI. And I'm like, no, it's really important and it's really different because we have moved from computing where we have rules-based computing. Like when you're coding, you're creating rules-based computing. You're telling a computer exactly what you want it to do, step by step by step. And if you have an error in that code, that computer is going to stop and not be able to go any farther because it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't learn from itself. A machine, which is AI drives machines. Machines are driven by machine learning and they can learn from themselves. Okay. And how they learn is they learn by data, a whole bunch of data that teaches them how to adjust. So, unlike a computer that's been coded with rules based computing, it gets to a point and it's like, oh, I can't go any farther, right? You didn't give me the right direction. A machine that's driven by machine learning and artificial intelligence can go, oh, wait, you didn't give me this exact instruction, but I can use all of my training data that I have available to me to figure out what the next step is. Okay. And how it figures out what that next step is by making predictions. So it literally takes all of that training data at the most basic level and predicts. So quick draw, if it was working, darn it anyway, is a great way to teach yourself and your students that when you're drawing, it's going to start making predictions. It's going to say it out loud to you. It's a cat. It's a dog. It's a bear. Oh, I know. It's a black cat, right? It's just using the data that you're giving it, which is the pixels that you're drawing to make those predictions. Now, we can take this idea, this foundational AI lesson that AI is a predicting machine, and we can apply it to the chat GPTs of the world. So no matter if you're using whatever conversational chatbot you're using, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Claude, um, DeepSeek, Perplexity, we could go on and on and on listing these tools. They all operate in the same way. They all operate what's based off of a large language model. And those large language models are literally predicting the next word. So if you go into ChatGPT and you give it a prompt, it is literally just using that training data to go, oh, based upon this input or the prompt that I was given, what is the next word? Then what is the next word? Then what is the next word? Then what is the next word? Predict, 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 on and on and on in an infinite cycle. The big difference is that it's making these predictions, very complex predictions, in a matter of nanoseconds. And we're actually, as these AI models get better and better, more complex, more data, even sometimes less data, we're now getting small language models. So they can be even faster because they have less data and they're usually more targeted to know like one particular area. Like it might be trained on just the medical field, for example, is an example of like a small language model. We're even getting down into predictions being in the picoseconds. So that's, if you wondered what's even smaller than a nanosecond, it's a picosecond. So there you go. Like, and whenever people learn this, they're like, oh, okay, this makes AI seem less scary and less complex and less intimidating and less confusing when you understand that it is literally a predicting machine. Okay, so next step, pretend that quick draw worked and we were actually able to do that. The next thing we're going to do is I'm actually going to show you what an AI's training data can look like. And we're going to do that via quick draw. So I said, we're going to, even if you've done quick draw before, we're going to take this to the next level. And this is something not a lot of people know is there because it's kind of hiding. So this is the screen that you're going to get when you're on the home page of quick draw. If you were able to get through to the end, this is the screen that you'll get. It'll tell you well drawn, it'll tell you how many you got right and wrong, it'll show you your drawings here, and then there's this little button that says data with a URL underline, like a hyperlink underline. If you click that, it'll take you to the training data, or when you're on the home page, there's a yellow underline that says world's largest doodling data set. If you click that, it's going to take you to the same place. So this is hopefully, let me hop over and see if I can do it before I say, let's see if I can get there. Ooh, it worked. All right. So let's break this down. And I will show it up here on the screen, or you can follow along and open it up on your own. I tell people that this is the only way I know of to actually look at the training data of an AI in a way that is digestible and understandable by a non-technical person. There are other ways, like there's a tool called Hugging Face where you can go in and you can kind of see a large language model's training data set. But if you're not technical, I'm not technical, by the way. I am not a technical person. My job is to explain technical things in an understandable way. I am not a technical person. Like, I wouldn't know how to interpret that training data in Hugging Face. But being that Quick Draw's training data set is drawings of things, everyday things in the world, it actually makes this able to understand even with non-technical, right? Because we're not seeing code, we're seeing doodles. So let's break this down. By the way, add questions into the chat. I've got it open here. I'm checking it as I'm talking here. So the first thing we can learn from looking at Quick Draw's training data set is it says at the top, what do 50 million drawings look like? So that means that Quick Draw has 50 million different drawings or doodles in its training data set that it's using to make predictions that you're drawing a black cat and not a dog or a bear, right? So I'm going to ask you, add to the chat, do you think that 50 million is a small training data set for an AI, a large training data set for an AI, or an average training data set for an AI model? Let me know in the chat. Is it small? Is it average? Is it large? We're going to do a little vote here. See what you guys think. Shannon says small with a question mark. Anybody else? What do you think? 50 million drawings. Is that a small training data set, an average, or a large? Oh, there we go. Average. Okay, so I have a small, I have a large to me. I like that, Maria. I have an average and I have a medium. I'm assuming that's the same as average. So we're all over the place. The answer is that is a very small training data set. just to give you an idea of comparison. Now, I'm comparing apples to oranges here a little bit, and I'll explain why in a second. ChatGPT's models, and there's lots of different ones, by the way, and they all have a different size training data set. But in general, ChatGPT's models are trained on billions and trillions with a B and a T of what they call parameters. That's how they measure the size of an AI training data set. Okay, so that's where I said I'm comparing apples to oranges a little bit, because here we're measuring the size in drawings. Each drawing is made up of probably hundreds of what's parameters if you were to take and go apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. But still, even if you were to take each of those 50 million drawings, break them down into parameters, we're still not even probably hitting 1 billion, whereas ChatGPT's models have many billions and even into the trillions of parameters. And some people don't understand the pure difference in size from like a million to a billion. Like you just say that like it's no big deal. And then a billion to a trillion. But a great way to visualize this is there's like 330 million people in the US, in the United States of America. I know we've got some Canadians here. What's the population of Canada, by the way? Let me know in the chat. But US is 330-ish, 340 million, something like that. So if there's like 200 billionaires in the United States, somewhere around there. If even one of those billionaires were to give every single person in the United States $1 million, they will have only touched a third of their wealth. And that's assuming that they only have $1 billion. These billionaires have many billions of dollars. Okay. So that's just that really helped me to just like envision how purely large 1 billion is compared to a million. Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? To think about that. So first thing we know is this is a fairly small training data set. That's another reason why we can use it to kind of learn about AI and interpret how AI makes predictions from training data sets. So next foundational lesson, AI is only as good as its training data. That's literally all. So imagine if your brain couldn't take in any more information, it was just stuck. That's kind of how an AI's training data works. Like I like to imagine, I'm a visual person. I imagine this like cauldron, like we're making like a big pot of stew. And when AI engineers are building new AI models, they take all this data and they put it into the stew pot and then they put a lid on it. And that lid does not come off again. Nothing else goes in the pot, nothing comes out of the pot. That's kind of how it works when you're building an AI model. So that AI model is stuck within that stew pot. It can't get any more information. It can't go out for information. That's all it knows. So an AI is only as good as its training data. And what a lot of people don't understand, and it makes sense when you use the free version of ChatGPT. I'm just going to open my ChatGPT here real quick. Which is what a lot of people use, you only have one model to choose from. But when you get into the paid version of ChatGPT, I have ChatGPT Pro right now, which is like the supercharged version of it. Look how many different models I can choose from. I have 6, 7, 8. At one point, I had 9 or 10 different models that I could choose from when I was in ChatGPT. And each one of these models has a different training data set, and that training data set is a different size. Not hugely different, but a different training data set. And so each of these models, moral of the story, gives me better, or what we'll say good or bad responses or outputs from the prompts I'm getting it. There are things that this 4.0 model, because of its training data and the way that it was trained, does really well that the reasoning models don't do really well, and vice versa. There's things that these reasoning models do really well that this 4.0 model doesn't do really well. So a key AI literacy is understanding that it's not the tool. I just saw a post on Facebook in a teacher group I'm in this morning that said, what tool should I use to generate lesson plans? And I responded, I said, that's the wrong question to ask. The question to ask is, what AI model is the best for generating lesson plans for my particular content area, grade level, all the specifics of my classroom, the standards that I teach? That's the right question to ask. And even digging in further, it really depends on what are you asking of those lesson plans? Are you generating inquiry-based lesson plans? Are you generating direct instruction lesson plans? Because the answer to that, you might have different models that are good and bad at different things, because AI is only as good as its training data. Okay. So now let's learn a little bit about how AI makes its predictions. So if you are following along with me, you are in the quick draw training data set. Pick any number of any one of these doodles in here, whichever one suits your fancy. I'm going to do the apple, which is right here, and you're just going to click on it. And what that does is it takes you into the view that shows you all of the drawings that are part of the training data set that are used to predict that you're drawing an apple and not an orange or a peach or a pear. Okay. And I want you to sit, I'll leave this up on the screen if you're not following along on your own device. And I want you to look at this for a second and then add into the chat. How do you think that the AI is guessing what you're drawing when you're doing quick draw? And let me know in the chat. So how is the AI in quick draw guessing what you're drawing? Got a brave soul typing here. Okay, following the shape and matching it. Pattern recognition. Yes, Kara, you win. You guys all have correct answers, but Kara, you really nailed. But the what's the saying? The nail on the head. Hit the nail on the head. Hit the nail on the head. There we go. You really hit the nail on the head. AI, at its most basic, is making predictions by looking for patterns. Okay, and this is again why quick draw and looking at the quick draw training data set is such a great way to teach this, because since we have doodles and not code and like random text that we can't interpret, we can clearly see what patterns it's looking for. In this case, when it's guessing that you're drawing an apple, right? So you can see here that every one of these drawings has a stem at the top, right? So it's going to predict, it's going to detect that pattern. And when it starts to see its stem out of the top, it's going to go, oh, you're drawing an apple. Most of them, not all, but most of them have that shape where you kind of have this little indent at the bottom, right? And like a little indent at the top. Some of them, like this one's very circular. You don't have that. This one's kind of goofy here, right? But for the most part, this is another circular one. They almost all have that similar like red delicious apple shape with the indent on the top and the indent on the bottom. So that's exactly how, what the AI is looking for are those like three pieces to go, oh, you're drawing an apple, not an orange, right? Or a peach or a pear. If it was a pear, it would look for that very distinctive pear shape, right? And find that pattern, and that's how it's making its guesses. Okay. The same applies. Now, it's hard to imagine taking the idea of guessing patterns from a drawing, which is you can very clearly see, right? And then applying that to like the ChatGPT, Copilot, Claudes, Geminis of the world, the large language models that are predicting words. But at a basic level, that's literally what it's doing. I told you it's literally just predicting the next word. So it's taking your prompt, your input that it gave you, and it's pulling out patterns, and very complex. And the way this works, it's called neural networks. They were actually designed based upon how the neurons of our brain work. That's how they created these complex predictions with AI, which sometimes freaks people out. They're like, "Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like the idea of AI being compared to the brain." But that's literally how these neural networks were created. And these neural networks have all of these different layers, like hundreds, thousands, millions of different layers. And within each of those layers is how it's making these connections and connecting those patterns together in a matter of nanoseconds, basically. So you can also kind of look here where it says under what do 50 million drawings look like? It says help researchers see patterns in how people around the world draw. So if you're teaching this to your students, making sure to point out that part that's highlighted in teal color right there to show them that's literally what it's doing. It is just looking for patterns. So I said Kara is a very smart person. I love it. Okay. Oops, sorry. One click here. Let's go here. So I told you I was going to try to take something that seems really complex, really intimidating, and try to make it simple and not intimidating for you. And this sometimes helps because patterns is literally math. And when you get down to it, AI and the way it's created is math. And some people are like, oh, but it's really complex math that I don't understand. I'm like, no, there is complex math in how AI is created, but there's also very, very, very simple math in how AI is created. And part of that simple math is patterns. So this shows me that we can literally be teaching AI literacy to preschoolers, right? Because preschoolers are learning about patterns and they need to understand that I color the lady in the corner because I can't say her name, Alexa. They probably have an Alexa at home, preschoolers, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh no, we don't want to teach preschoolers AI. I'm like, oh no, yes we do. Or I have Hey SIRI right here. I also can't say her name. Right? Like those preschoolers have those devices at home. Their parents have these, right? And they're hearing their parents talking to SIRI and ALEXA. I feel like I'm talking to a toddler right now, spelling these words out, right? So they need to understand that that's not a real person, right? That's an AI, and that AI is just looking for patterns. That's all it's doing. So another connection here is it's so important to teach AI literacy. I'm going to give you some research here in a bit about the importance of teaching AI literacy. So you kind of understand that a little bit more. But what I'm hearing a lot is like, well, we don't have time. And believe me, 100%, I get that. Teachers have so much on their plates and you have so many standards you have to teach and you've got the standardized tests and all the things, right? And you're like, one more thing I have to add, right? I always use the example of like a marble jar. I think of formal education like a marble jar, and we keep adding marbles, but we haven't taken marbles out, and now the marbles are just like overflowing everywhere, right? But point being, you don't have to take time outside of your core curriculum to teach AI and AI literacy. Right here is a perfect example of a math lesson, right? Where you can teach patterns and talk about AI and how AI is just making predictions from patterns. Okay, let's talk about bias, and then we'll move on. We better move on to our research. So if you've followed AI at all, you've probably heard people talk about, but AI is biased, right? 100%. And the reason that AI is biased when you get down to it is because humans are biased, and humans are the ones that create the training data that AI is using to make its predictions, right? So it's like the circle. The circle of bias that never, never, never ends. So this is a really fun activity that I love to do with students to teach them about AI bias. I have them look at the training data set of QuickDraw. So if you're on this page, you just go back a step. So where you're seeing all of the drawings here, or I'll put my slide up on the screen here that's a little bit larger of a view. This isn't all the drawings, but just kind of a snippet of the drawings. I want you to take a second and look through these drawings, either the one I have up on the screen or the training data set on your own screen. And I want you to add to the chat. Do you see any drawings here that might have some sort of bias? Let me know in the chat. Any drawings that might have bias? Oh, do all camels have one hump? Very good question. Do believe there are camels that have two humps. So what I would do, and I don't even know, do we get more than two humps? See, I don't know. At this point, I would use this as a learning opportunity. We go and search. Well, are there certain regions of the world that have camels that have one hump versus two humps? Can you have camels that have more than two humps, right? And if that's the case, then this is potentially, and let's hop over to actually look at what the camel looks like. Okay, so there are some with two humps in here, right? But you could say that if it's a regional thing, that some camels in certain areas have one hump, some camels in other areas have two humps. That's biased. That's regional location bias, right? Because if you're drawing a camel that only has one hump, but every training data set has two humps, then that AI is biased towards you and your knowledge. Yeah, love it. Sally the camel. Anybody else? Any other things that might have bias? There's so many just on this one little screen right here. And everybody always picks out a new one. Like that's the first time somebody's picked out the camel. Celebrating birthdays. Yes, where is that? I just saw it here. Right? Not everybody celebrates. Like my guess is, actually, let's hop over and see. What's the birthday cake? Not everybody does a birthday cake. And birthday cakes might look very different depending upon your culture and where you live in the world. Perfect example of bias. Love it. Some other of my favorite examples of bias. I love to do this one with kids, with Gen Z and Gen Alpha learners, especially because the prompt for this guy is alarm clock. But look at that alarm clock. That alarm clock is an analog alarm clock, right? If you're a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha student, which is anywhere from, all K through 12 students are either Gen Z or Gen Alpha, right? Just to give you an idea of age. They likely have never seen an analog alarm clock. So they're likely, and I think, do I have it on my next slide here? Yeah, they're likely going to draw a digital alarm clock like this, right? So I like to tell them, I'm like, guess what? If you draw a digital alarm clock, there are some in the training data set. There's one, there's two, three, maybe four digital alarm clocks here. The AI might eventually guess what you're drawing, but it's going to take a lot longer than if you were an older individual that has seen an analog alarm clock. And that's what you think of when you think of alarm clock, and they're going to draw this. So guess what? Quick Draw is biased to you as a Gen Z and a Gen Alpha learner. And usually they're like, what? And that really starts to hit home this idea of bias. Some other ideas of bias, just to pick out here, a band-aid, right? The prompt of this is actually bandage, but people usually draw a band-aid. And so I've always thought of this in terms of like cultural bias. If you live in a third world country, you've likely never seen a band-aid. You maybe have never been to a medical clinic to see a bandage before. You might have no idea what that is, or a bandage to you might be a leaf, right? I picked this out once in a session and somebody said, well, I'm an EMT, and if I hear bandage, I'm going to draw a roll of gauze. I'm not going to draw a band-aid. I'm like, there you go. There's educational bias, right? Because your training as an EMT makes you think something different about bandage than other people that aren't trained medically about bandage. Church is another one. You can really go down a lot of bias there, right? But like almost every single one of these pictures you could pick out and find some sort of bias. And this is such a great way to teach students that. This also has such a great core curriculum connection, right? Because bias, you could probably connect bias to pretty much any content area, but science, especially when talking about bias in research, social studies, when talking about cultural, geographical biases, ELA, talking about literature biases, right? So just another example of where you can kind of embed this into what you're already teaching. Okay, cool. Let me move on. Actually, let me stop here and see if there's any questions while I give you probably saw on my bottom of my screen here, I gave you a copy of the slides. You've got links to Quick Draw. There are way more resources and ideas than we're going to have time to talk about in the next 25 minutes here in the slides, but you have it all on this page. So I will copy, let me just hop over and grab that URL real quick and put it in the chat. You can click that. And if you're watching the recording, go to lindyhawk.com/ncce-2025. What I did was I just added this session to the page for all of my sessions from the NCCE conference this year, back in February 2025. So you'll have lots of other resources on that page in addition to this one. I'll hop over and show you what it looks like here in a second. but let everybody get a chance to get that URL. I am also going to do a drawing in the last 5-10 minutes here for a copy of my book, A Teacher's Guide to Online Learning. So stay tuned. I'll tell you how to enter that drawing here in a bit. This is what the site looks like. If you click this button right here, it'll take you straight down to the section of the page that has all the resources for this session. So here's your slides, here's a link to Quick Draw, and then other things that we may or may not have time to talk about here in the next bit. I always plan way too much and then kind of do like a choose your own adventure time, depending on how much time we have left. What questions do you have so far? So we've covered AI as a predicting machine, literally and figuratively. It learns off of data. It's only as good as its training data. Depending upon the AI model, you're likely going to have billions and trillions of parameters that it's learning from. We learned about bias and kind of why you hear that AI is biased. No questions? Okay. All right. I'm going to assume everything's been crystal clear up to this point. So I want to do one more thing, and then depending upon how much time we have left after that one thing, we'll do a little choose your own adventure time, depending upon how much time we have left. Because I've got lots more stuff that we could talk about. Let's talk about research about AI literacy. So I threw out, I'm going to skip past this actually. You have that on your web page. AI literacy research. So I've been throwing out that term AI literacy, and I told you one of my goals for this session is always to increase your AI literacy, as well as give you tools and strategies that you can use to help increase your students' AI literacy. If you've never heard that term, what does it mean? Basically, it's this idea of the knowledge and skills that allow you to critically understand, use, and evaluate AI at a very basic level. We're starting to get lots more definitions of AI literacy. We're also starting to get lots more terms out there. We're starting to hear AI readiness, AI fluency, lots of different AI literacy frameworks, but I really like digital promises, and that's where this comes from. And there's a link on this slide if you want to go check it out, because it has this really great graphic here that shows that in order to understand AI, you've got to use AI. In order to use AI, you have to understand AI and evaluate AI. And if you're going to evaluate AI, you have to understand and use it. And all three of these pieces are so intertwined, and you cannot take away one of those pieces. So obviously why we're here today is to really focus on increasing your understanding to make you more comfortable and confident in using and understanding the importance of why you need to evaluate AI's output. You know now that it's literally just making predictions. So you cannot take anything that AI gives you at complete face value without fact checking it in some way or another, which is really no different than we should have been doing as humans with the internet for a very long time, right? You never want to take what one website gives you at face value without going and checking another website or two, or the website itself makes a difference, right? When you're fact checking, like you're more apt to trust information from certain websites than you are from, say, like a Wikipedia source out there. It's the exact same thing when it comes to AI. So why do I keep saying that you need to teach your student, you need to increase your own AI literacy and teach your students and increase their AI literacy? Because we're starting to get research. I call this new, it's still new. It came out in January. That's still new in research world, but it's not new in AI world because AI is moving so fast. But we'll still call it new research about the correlation of AI literacy and AI use. And I'm going to ask you guys, if you've looked at the slides and you know the answer, don't answer. But if you didn't, add to the chat. Do you think that as a person's AI literacy increases, their AI use decreases or increases? So as a person's AI literacy increases, they learn more about AI. Do they use AI more or do they use AI less? So you can just add more or less to the chat. Shannon says increases. Okay. So as a person learns more about AI, their area literacy increases, their area use increases. Maria says increases. AI use increases, depth of use more as AI literacy increases. Anybody else? Anybody think that it decreases? Speak now. I don't see anybody adding. Okay. The answer is drum roll. It decreases. So and what you're seeing here on this chart is the x-axis is AI literacy. Okay, as it increases, the y-axis is AI receptivity or propensity to use AI. I like that explanation better. So propensity to use AI goes down as a person's AI literacy goes up. And that's the opposite of what most people think and what most educators think, right? Because we keep hearing as educators, well, we can't teach kids AI because then they'll just use it and they'll be reliant on it, right? It's actually the research is showing quite the opposite. And when you understand that AI is literally just a predicting machine, they call this the magical thinking trap. When you don't understand that AI is just a predicting machine, you view its outputs as magical, right? You have awe that it can do human-like tasks. Let me know in the chat. Anybody come into this webinar thinking that, like, oh man, AI is magical, right? Like, oh, it can do these human-like tasks. It's okay to admit, you don't have to admit it, but well, I felt that way when I remember the first time I got into ChatGPT. Actually, I remember the first time I had bought this tool called Quick Write before ChatGPT was released. It was using the GPT large language models. And I was like, oh my gosh, this thing can write for me. I remember that feeling. And then ChatGPT was even better because it did more than just writing. Right? I was like, oh my gosh, this is magical. But then as I started to increase my own AI literacy, I was like, oh, but really it's just making predictions. It's predicting the next word. You know that, right? And so when you understand that, your critical, and actually let me step back a step. Remember this evaluate part of our AI literacy framework. Your ability to critically evaluate AI, or not your ability, but your understanding. That's a better explanation. Your understanding that you have to critically evaluate AI goes up. And as you learn more, as you use it more, you understand it more, you evaluate it more, you realize that it's going to be great at some things and not great at other things. It's not going to be great at everything. And it can't be your catch all to do everything for you. Versus students that don't understand that, of course, they're going to use it to write the quick essay because it can. And every human being on the planet is going to do things that are going to save them time, right? But when they start to realize, like, oh, I can't just have it write the essay and not like fact check it or add that human element to it, their use of it goes down. Because, and I find this in my own work. The more, and I showed you how you can toggle between the different models in ChatGPT, right? So I now know through lots of practice what model does what well, and teach them when to use AI, when to not use AI. I always say, teach them how to allow AI to take away the doing, not the thinking, right? You want it to take away the drudgery work, but you still are the human that's not just making predictions, that's using your actual neurons in your brain to kind of drive that. Okay. Any thoughts, questions about that? I'll use any questions you have to kind of guess. I told you we're going to have a little choose your own adventure time of what we're going to do next here because I've got way too much stuff to do. No? Okay. We'll do one more quick thing then, and then we'll start wrapping up. So I'm going to jump down, like I told you about there's lots more stuff you can explore here in the slides on your own. Teachable machine allows you to create your own AI model. And what better way to understand how AI works than to create your own AI model? And students love to do this, and it's usually a really eye-opening activity when you have them create your own AI model. And it's free. There's no logins or anything. Teachable Machine. It's another tool from Google. Actually, all but one of the tools I gave you today are little free tools from Google that don't require any login or anything. Okay, last thing I want to show you, another kind of fundamental demystifying AI. And this is a great jumping point off of you just learned that when we teach people when we increase people's AI literacy, we teach them about AI and how it works, their AI use actually goes down, right? So, second thing to learn is in education, we have kind of been fighting AI, not kind of, we have been fighting AI, right? Well, a lot of schools are blocking it and banning it, whatever, and they're worried about it writes for you, right? So, it's really hard as a teacher now to assign your students to write an essay when ChatGPT can write the essay for them. But what we're missing is that you have to prompt AI. And the more advanced it gets, this is still going to be the case. The prompting will get less and it will get more simple, but you're still prompting the AI. You still have to give the AI an input in order to get your desired output back out of there. And we're starting to get more what's called multimodal interactions with AI, meaning that when ChatGPT was first released, we had to type into it, right? But now we have the microphone button that we can do text or speech to text. We have the conversational button where you can actually click it and you can have a conversation with ChatGPT now. Those are examples of multimodal. But at the basic level and how most people do really intense prompting is their writing, right? Prompting is writing. So my next activity I want to give you is a great little thing you can do with your students. It's fun. I would say it tricks them into writing and helps them learn some prompting skills, some prompt engineering skills, because we now live in a world of natural language queries, right? That's another difference between moving from computers to machines. Is machines are creating an output based upon your input, which is in natural language. It's not via code. I can now go, just the other day I was on a call and somebody was like, AI can code? And I'm like, yeah, I can code. So I opened up Claude and I said, create me a snake game. And in 30 seconds, I had a snake game. And I did not have to write a single line of code. All I did was give it natural language, create a snake game, and it created code for me. So that's an example of what natural language means, or natural language query. This tool is called Say What You See. I'll put the link in the chat here. Jump back over there. If you want to follow along, we'll do this very quickly because we're running out of time here. So follow that link if you're watching the recording, bit.ly/saync, or you can go to my site down here and there's a link that takes you straight to Say What You See, or you can scan the QR code. 3 different ways to get to Say What You See. And basically it's super simple. You come in here, you hit launch experiment, start level 1. It gives you an image that has been generated by AI via a text prompt. So this is a text to image generation. And what you do is you try to write over here where it says type your caption in 120 characters or less what you think the prompt would be to recreate this photo. So I'll do one example for you. A bowl of ramen. I'm going to say traditional Japanese ramen. There we go. With a egg cut in half. And what is that, like bok choy? Bok choy, testing my knowledge here. And I'm not sure what this is, or this is. Maybe that's like daikon radish. I'm trying to test my actual ramen skills here. We're going to go with that. And then once you have that prompt the way that you want, you hit generate. And what it will do is it'll take your prompt, it'll create a new image, and it'll tell you 82% match. So not too bad. I got the bok choy. I think that was daikon radish. I did pretty good there. Now, I could have done a better job and I had some more characters where I could have given it some more indication of like what angle the picture was at, right? And then once you give it your prompt, it actually gives you over here on the left what the prompt was. So, A, I'm getting a good prompt engineering lesson here as a student, right? B, I'm writing. You're tricking your students into writing. I did a little for Halloween last year. It was an EdTech trick or treat event, and we were supposed to have a trick and a treat, like little tips that we were supposed to share. And this was my trick. because I said you're literally tricking your students into writing. And really, it's creative narrative writing if you really get down into it. Like you can really check off some good writing standards. And then if you want to keep going, you can hit next. It'll give you another one. And then as you go, it gets harder and harder and harder. So they have to get better and better at their prompts, and more writing examples. Okay, let me pause there before I start wrapping up. Um, Questions, thoughts. Like I said, there's tons more in the slides for you to go and experiment with, but we did 3 things. We did quick draw. I showed you how you can use the training data set to learn, and we could go on and on and on learning so many more lessons by that quick draw training data set. We talked about the research on AI literacy and propensity of AI use. We did say what you see to learn that prompting is writing. Prompting is just writing. You can trick your students into writing. Prompting is a skill that everybody has to know now in order to operate in our AI infused world. You can go check out Teachable Machine to build your own AI model, as well as there's some other fun things in there for you. Okay, I told you I was going to give away a copy of my book, Teacher's Guide to Online Learning. So while I'm waiting for any questions that come in, if you go to this link, and this is only for live people, by the way, talk.ac/Lindy Hawk. I'll put it in the chat. It'll take you to a quick little survey. Answer the questions, tell me how I did. This gives me instant feedback. I'll give you a couple minutes to complete that, and then I'll open up the responses and pick a name randomly who's going to win the book. Also, if you complete it at the end, it'll give you a copy of my lesson plan called Chopped AI Starts, which is a really great way to start teaching your students. The whole theme is AI is an ingredient, you are the chef. So teaching students how to leverage AI to help them, but not overpower their dish that they create as part of Chopped. So if you complete this Talkadot form, it'll give you a link to that lesson plan at the end. Hold on, that link did not make it live. So hold on, let me try that one more time. Oh, there's a question about the recording. I'll let Shannon answer that. I think I know the answer, but here we go. Let me add a better link in the chat for those of you that are live. There we go. There's a live link that you can click. Question about the recording. Yes, the recording will be posted to ncce.org, so you'll be able to watch it back. Other questions. What questions did I not answer that you have about AI? I know you've got to have. You came to a demystifying AI session, so you've got to have questions that I didn't answer, because there's so much more that we can cover. We covered the basics.
Well, Lindy, I'll give you a question. So there's just so many AI
Please.
tools out there. And so if you're just wanting to get started, what would be your advice for someone that's just getting started?
Great question. Well, honestly, I would go to ChatGPT, create an account with your personal account, unless your school has approved the use of ChatGPT with your school account. Um, and just start talking to it. So when you're in ChatGPT, I would start with the 4.0 model, which is what it's going to default you to. And if you're in the free version, that's all you're going to get. So you don't even have to worry about that, right? Unless you've paid for it. And just start. And honestly, one of the best ways to start is to ask the AI how it can help you. So give it some context. I am a middle school science teacher in Washington. Um, I teach physical science and earth science well, I already said middle school, so that's good. I want to know how AI can help me. Enter. Literally ask it. Tell it, and you can give it lots more details. You could tell it what type of school you teach at. You could give it a copy of your standards. So you have what's called computer vision here, where you can actually attach files. So you could attach your standards and say, these are the standards that I have to teach. Tell me how you can help me, right? And look, lesson planning, generate lesson plans, differentiated materials, interactive content. I can create simulations and visuals, virtual labs. I can generate quizzes, tests, rubrics, tutoring, personalized learning, right? It goes on and on and on and on. Now, if any of this interests you, you can actually highlight it and you get this little reply button, okay? And you can hit that reply button and say, okay, give me a lesson plan for 7th grade or science. And you could actually give it a standard or standards if you wanted, but just for the sake of time, we'll do this. Great, here we go. Oh, and look, it took it upon itself. I told it I was based in Washington. So it knows that Washington's a next generation science standard state. And it picked plate tectonics because I didn't give it a specific topic, but I could have, right? And here we go, right? And now I could say, oh, but I teach the 5E model. Can you change the lesson plan to that? Boom, 5E model, right? Now, sometimes people aren't ready to take the jump to start using it in your job and as your role as an educator. In that case, let's hit new chat, start a new chat, and I want you to ask it what it can help you with from a personal perspective. So like it can do meal planning for you. You could say, I have 3 kids and I hate meal planning. Can you help me? Right? So think of like personal things. If it intimidates you to start with teaching, honestly, that's the best way to do it. And going back to that little graph that showed like use, understand, evaluate, and how they're all together, you're never going to have that aha moment of why this is such a transformational technology unless you just go in and start prompting and chatting and asking it how it can help you, and then it's going to kind of you know how you do a brainstorm and it spirals that brainstorm. That's what's going to happen. It's going to kind of like just create this like whole spiral of ideas for you. Does that help?
Yeah, certainly. And then we always would remember the information that we put in to any source. We wouldn't put in our private student information just to always say that.
Yep. And I did not get to that point because I talked too much about quick draw because that's what I do. But on that website I gave you, there is an infographic that I created. It's called Navigating AI Educators Rules of Thumb. If you open that up, I created this for educators exactly that. We're like, I don't know where to start. I'm nervous that I'm going to do something wrong. I'm going to violate her FERPA, whatever it is. So that's exactly what this does. It tells you never upload the following information into public AI models. Personally identifiable information, or PII, right? That's the FERPA language for personally identifiable information. Confidential information, proprietary, sensitive. If you're using a public AI model like ChatGPT or Claude, right? To me, this is a good rule of thumb, pretty much any AI model that you're using, right? You don't want to feed it any confidential information or PII, unless your school has literally said, we have a private AI model that's data protected, and this is okay to like put student test scores in or something like that. Okay, let me do my drawing real quick here. Okay, I'm gonna pick a random number. The winner is Gavin. I do not have a last name. Make sure. Are you on here, Gavin? Are they still here? Did they hop off? Oh, you are. You're on here. Gavin, send me congrats. Yay! Email me a good mailing address and I will drop ship the copy to you. Congrats. All right. I know I'm right at time. Sorry, Shannon. Take it
No, you're
over.
great. Maria had one more question. I don't know if you want to address that really quick. It says, how do you handle copyright with AI when using content from other websites in generative AI tools?
Okay, how do you handle copyright with AI when using content from other websites? Can you say, Marie, what do you mean by like content from other websites?
Sure. If I'm using a textbook and I'm pulling in things from my textbook's website, if I've got a PDF, even if I've got images, how do I not just cite that, but how do I make sure I'm abiding within copyright?
Yep. Okay. So great question. It's not an easy answer, unfortunately, because we have very little guidance in the US, at least, in terms of AI and copyright. If you go search the copyright, what is it called? Office and AI guidelines did come out with some very basic. Here it is, right here. Copyright and artificial intelligence. I'll put this link in the chat. Um, There we go. This is the only guidance that the Copyright Office has come out with in the US, and it's not very much. So the answer is it's not super clear. There's a lot of discussion out there about it. The discussion seems to be landing on like APA and MLA have both come out with citing AI, like how to cite AI. So that's what I've been using as my guidelines. So here's APA style, how to cite ChatGPT, right? I have just been following whether I'm doing APA or MLA. I think Chicago even has some guidelines for AI citations as well, and that's what I've been using. The other thing I'll do, and you'll notice if you look at any of my blogs, is not maybe any of them, but a lot of them. I put at the top, I kind of have this little disclaimer that just says basically like I collaborated with AI to write this blog post by asking it to suggest improvements to my original writing and thoughts. And I use that as kind of a disclaimer that I put on things. There are people coming out with what are more like Creative Commons like badges for AI. The problem is it's so complicated that I'm not sure that that kind of thing is going to age super well, because like me, the way that I use AI, I'm constantly going back and forth and using different models. And, I usually have like 10 different tabs open with like 10 different ChatGPT or Claude or my two go-tos, like chats that I have open, accomplishing the same task. So that becomes really hard to get really specific in citing it, if that makes sense. So that's why I kind of like go to this disclaimer or follow like that. Does that answer your question at all? I could go on and on about this, but a fairly quick answer.
No, that's absolutely wonderful.
Okay.
And I'll be looking for a future session from you. So I'll be sure and tune in.
Okay, awesome. All right. Stop sharing my screen, by the way. Oh, sorry. Let me put up our final slide. And then I'll
Yeah,
stop
we'll
sharing
go
my
to our
screen.
last slide. Thank you, Lindy,
Forgot
so
about that.
much
There
for
we go.
sharing today. These were great shares. I love that you provided us with the research. And my key takeaway is prompting is writing. I love that. That's a really good thing to point out. And as everyone goes out and starts to research all of AI tools and things to use in AI, just always be sure that you look to your standards in your learning community and think about which one fits the best with your educational standards, your community expectations, and your privacy policies as well, because that does really impact the way that you choose to put things into AI and what you choose to use, right? And then one of my favorite quotes about AI that a teacher said is sometimes I would ask the teacher down the hall her opinion, and she would give me things that I liked and I would use them. And that's how she viewed AI, right? Sometimes it gives me good stuff that I like and I want to use, and sometimes it doesn't. So love all those facts. Lindy, those were great shares. We just want to invite you to be part of the NCC community. And if you don't know about our conference, we have a conference every year in Seattle. It happens to be February 25th through the 27th in 2026. We also have our website, ncc.org, and we're on all the social media channels. So just look for NCC EdTech, and we have a free newsletter blog that you can subscribe to. So just look us up, and then we do year-round PD, and we have great partners like Lindy that help us and work with us in our community. So this was a great session. We appreciate everybody joining, and we hope that you'll join us in the fall when we resume our community learning events. Thanks, Lindy.
Thank you.